I mean, in what way?
नाइट एफ4
थोड़ा तो
ट्रेड
बताओ. Oh my
खेल रहा है भाई,
God,
फाइट कर रहा
Sagar.
है.
Get ready for a special game, and yes, there's bloodshed in this one. We've got Gukesh versus the GOAT. They're playing freestyle chess, which means it looks like a 5-year-old set up the board. And with the white pieces, what does D Gukesh do? He blasts off with pawn f4, supported by the queen. Magnus Carlsen, in response, goes for a little fianchetto to open his bishop. This is round 9 of the freestyle chess event in House on the Baltic Sea. Very, very posh, ooh la la, and some of the greatest players in the world present at the tournament. What an exceptional fight this is. Commentators freaking. B3 now played to open that bishop. Knight h6, normally a big boo-boo to put it on the edge, but Magnus wants to keep this one's eyes open. Now we see this one develop here. Gukesh doesn't mind blocking. We see g6 played, an exchange. The queen hits the corner of the board, and I have to say, right, just in general, this game's really shaken up how I feel about freestyle chess. Such an exciting one this is. c5, e3 on the board. This knight enters the game. Knight d3, trying to fight for that e5 square, and this is the randomness of freestyle chess. You know, if you go d6, by the way, is also called Fischer random for stuff like this and the starting pieces. Well, now this one, check, and you're picking up this knight here, unless it goes here, but then it's not ideal. Possibly this is coming soon, just not what you want. So let's run it back. By the way, no back cave today. I'm using a board here that doesn't look like someone just puked all over it with freestyle juice. So f6 is played. Normally frowned upon, right? GM Lord Hans Feingold, of course, doesn't like it. But you take control of the square without opening the king. Now we see this knight completely forgetting which way it's supposed to go, but it does support some pawn pushes. Magnus so impressed he copies, and after e4 taking the center, the knight now doing a job, as we see. This one pushes forward, challenging for the space, and you might think this, right, it's an absolute knee-jerk reaction, but then d6 and you're really starting to nibble away like Bugs Bunny. So it wasn't played. Instead, queen e2 supports that center, and bear in mind, by the way, white can still castle kingside here. You know, let me give you a quick visual on that. Whoa, that's interesting, right? The way it goes all weird as you castle the king that side of the board. Okay, not played. Magnus plays the incredible pawn e5. He just wants to build the big pawn cube, aka the pube. What does Gukesh do? He shaves it in this direction. Also could have gone here, but we don't want to get lost in too many variations because I'm trying to get down the pub to watch the rugby. Sorry, I mean because we want to just enjoy the game here. And after knight captures, we get this one taking back. The black queen centralizes like a black widow spider, 8 legs sprawling in every direction, of course, and I absolutely love this. What does Gukesh D do? He goes bang, full Gukesh A mode. Andrea starts spinning the beats. We've got that opposite side castle thing going on. So exciting. And the best thing about this, I don't know how deep Gukesh saw this, right? But Magnus now plays pawn d5. He's about 3 minutes up on the clock and he's sitting pretty because this queen is undefended. You know, you can't take, which is the natural move, right? Break up the big black center, which Magnus has erected. And if you go d3, starts getting pretty passive. You know, you can pile on the pressure, you can bring a rook, but then black can do the funny castles thing, you know, bring this into the game. And Magnus can break this tension at his leisure. You know, white can never take. So we run it back, right? Gukesh didn't do that. After pawn d5, he finds the truly special world champion caliber move. Pawn d4.
I mean, d4 move, it just wouldn't even cross my mind.
What an absolute shot. And I've added the brilliancy there. No idea if ChessCom would have given it. This is great because we see queen takes in the game, but what if pawn takes? Winning that queen pawn, clean pawn, still you can't of course capture. There's a pin here, but this is the idea. You go knight d3, the queen can't take here because the bishop does a job, so say it retreats here, and then you go e5, and this actually gives positional compensation. This one completely blocked out by the double Ds, and you can soon recapture the d pawn here. You've got a passed runner, monster knight, terrible incredible bishop. Fascinating idea. Positional mastery. But this one was played by Magnus. Queen takes, right? And now this is Gukesh's point. Take on f5. Pawn takes back. Now you can kick the queen out of dodge. It jumps back here and knight h3. And again, despite being a pawn down, there's huge compensation with the knight rotating, the king still a bit drafty, the pawn under fire. So Magnus pours some sugar on it. Now we see the explosive c4, and d4 does soon come, but not just yet. First, Magnus goes for the old castle's queenside. The rook jumps over. Now we see knight f4, and not only are you hitting the center here and everything, but you're threatening this jump into here. You know, if d4 now, you can take off, knight recaptures, and this is the point. It was overloaded, right? So now you jump, and even if you've pinned this queen, you know, you can soon step out of it, and white's just doing great. You're not long for this world. This is how you lose a rook. If instead you try and save the rook, then you drop a knight in the corner. You can't deal with all the problems. So after knight f4, this rook hits the queen, adds defense to e6. It moves in here, but it's a double whammy, and Magnus just can't hold everything together. So he plays the practical move, pawn d4, builds the old connect 4, unlocks a jiu-jitsu lesson with Hans Niemann. Very nice, lucky him. We see takes in the corner, a knight in the corner. Is there ever anything more forlorner? And after takes here with check, the queen blocks it, and listen to this. The audience erupts in just bleating as the queens leave the board, normally an ominous sign against the current world champion in blitz, co-champion I should say. But Gukesh, he wants to fight, because after knight d5, hitting the outpost, threatening to go to fork Vegas, Magnus slides with the rook. This one offers the exchange, obliged. These ones come off the board. Knight c7, this is the incredible moment. You could take those knights off, play a rook end game. Yes, black's got this monster pass pawn connected, but you've got a 2-on-1 over here. It's going to give counterplay. But Gukesh, what does he do? We absolutely love it. He plays knight f4 here.
I mean, in what way?
Knight f4
थोड़ा तो
trade.
बताओ. Oh my
खेल रहा है भाई,
god.
fight कर रहा है.
Sagar,
And the great thing about this move is it signals intent.
He's fighting on. That's the biggest thing. No, like Magnus used to do this.
Yeah.
And now Gukesh is doing it to Magnus. It's just such a statement. He has
Amazing.
said, no draw, Magnus. Let's fight.
King d7, and he puffs out his chest, leans back, and he's like, do you even rook lift, bro? As he slides that one off the board, up the board. He just wants to fight against Magnus. Rook e7 offers an exchange. Is he going to go for it now? Perfectly good move. Oh no, he's not. Rook h5. I mean, this guy just loves to play chess, and we're here for it. Love to watch. Rook h6, knight d6. Now this knight stumbles back to the outpost, and it looks like you might be able to sacrifice a rook, run the d pawn, but without going down the whole line, doesn't quite work. So Magnus moves the rook. Now we see a check. The king goes. The knight comes back. Does Magnus want to do any kind of repeat? No, he doesn't. He goes knight f5. He's of course going to fight. I mean, he's the endgame goat for a reason, right? You're playing with fire when you go to town with Magnus in the old endgame. Rook drops back here. King d6 on the board. Rook f2. And now it's Magnus's turn to go for it himself. He's like, you want to play with
mushrooms.
Be careful, you might get burnt. b5 on the board. Because now he's undermining the knight, and after king f1 entering the game, you can take, and this is a weak pawn. Can be targeted, right? This endgame hotting up. Magnus gets active. King e1 played. Knight d6, again offering an exchange, but this time it's a bit trickier. You know, if you go for this and the knight coming backwards, the black king's very active. The pawn's loose. This is dangerous. It really is a tough endgame. So Gukesh plays knight f4. Really good idea, actually, to stay blockading, keep pieces on the board. And if you take here, well, now you can win a pawn because the king's got to stay with the rook. Sample line there. So that's why Magnus goes rook c7. Covers that c pawn there. Now we get this check played. King f5. And in this moment here, Gukesh, he's put up such a good fight, but he just cracks under the pressure here. It's such a tough endgame. Rook c2, perhaps the best, you know, staying with the pawn, but I don't know. It's just so tough regardless at this point. Who knows if black's going to come in this way, whatever. what we see in the game is knight d5 hits the rook. Magnus saves it, but now you're just in this world of pain. I mean, let me turn on the engine, quickly remind myself, what's it saying best? Okay, check. King g4, rook e6, this kind of play. Okay, it's so tough. What we see in the game is h3, and the idea is to go g4, check. The knight covers this square, the rook covers the file, so you'd sort of drive that king back, right? Or maybe to g5. But Magnus can now go knight e4, and it's just an absolute killer, because not only do you cut the flight squares of the king, checkmate's on the way, but after check you give the king a square on the e-file, because now the rook's no longer checking it, the knight's a blocker. This king's got to get its running shoes on, but now d3 hits the rook, and more importantly, it's carbonara. That king is stepping in, right? Rook e1, king d4, and I've added the exclam just as an indication that it was the last move of the game. Gukesh resigns. Why? What to do? Engine says go knight e3, but you're only temporarily holding the pawn. You know, look at this. What's next? Rook e2. Would you go rook d1 maybe? Oh, now the knight drops. Okay, what do you play? Rook e2. Can you make a queen yet? No, it says king d3. I mean, the whole thing's just horrendous, right? I mean, you can just see how lost this is without me showing lines. So let's turn the analysis off. Game ended here on king d4. Truly an epic fight. Enjoyed that one so much. Hope you did too. Smash subscribe if so, and I hope to see you again on a future video. Cheers.